Women's Six Nations 2022, folks. The second round of games. 3 games on. I've watched all 3. I watched Wales and Scotland first, France and Ireland second, and then Italy and England third. That wasn't the order the games were on, but I watched them on demand. So I kind of watched them a wee bit out of order. We'll go through some key events, some stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on the games this weekend. The first one, 40 points to 5, France over Ireland. It's a pretty big win. Good crowd for this one. It was a pretty entertaining game, but I would say you'd be happy if you're a French fan, obviously. Pretty bloody solid performance, but if you were Irish, you'd be pretty irate at the way the girls dropped the ball. Honest to goodness. They knocked the ball on and lost the ball at line-out time a frustrating amount. Like, even me, as a neutral guy, was just shaking my head. I was really getting quite peed off at this game at times. Just the Irish players, man. Maybe there's still a bit of rust. But it was, yeah, really frustrating because I think they were better value than 5 points. Not to say they were going to beat the French. I mean, the French were pretty comfortable winners, but yeah, I do think the Irish will look back at quite a few moments in this one with a bit of regret that they didn't perform a little bit better. The French started, and they kind of start, I want to say, a little bit conservatively, and they're quite happy to opt for threes. They seem to want to get 2 scores ahead before they opt to go for, the jugular and go for the bonus point. They did start with a penalty. Lauren's got one on the left wing on her debut, so not a bad way to introduce yourself. Sansuis gets a couple. Her sniping runs are pretty legendary. Even I understand that as a go doesn't follow the women's game that much. She was off the bench last week, added value, and she was doing it from the start this week. France kicked the second penalty, though, before they had got the second try. So they had an 11-0 lead before they really started, targeting. Who was it? It's 11-0 lead, or when they got their next try? It was either 16-0. I know they had one chance to opt for a penalty. They took it. The next time they were like, "Nah, we're going for the try," and it worked. They managed to get the tries. That being said, I should say Higgins, who ends up getting the try for Ireland, actually had one denied earlier on for an Irish player holding back a French player, so she could have had her first one a wee bit earlier. Maybe that sends the game into a different direction, but then maybe she doesn't score if the French player's not held back. But yeah, it's pretty brutal stuff from the French in the first half. I think they've got like a 26-0 lead, bonus point in the bag by half time. Second half, they continue it up. They get it to 33-0. That's when Eve Higgins gets her try to at least make it 33-5, but the French aren't done. They get one more before the finish of the game. Ireland a little bit guilty at times of kind of failing to exit when they were under pressure, but certainly not as bad as the Italians doing the same thing. Bouillard, who gets a try, also gets yellow card at this one. She put in a high tackle, but she had good... she wasn't upright, basically. She was good technique, they said, so she didn't get red carded, which it would have been because she had direct contact to the head. So at least good to see those laws being applied kind of consistently. Although I found in the games generally this weekend they were a bit more lenient on one-handed intercept attempts, which are usually at least penalisable. Sometimes in these games they were just like, nah, it's fine. Genuine attempt. It's a frustrating thing about rugby is like what classifies as a genuine attempt just seems to be down to the discretion of the referee. If you had a hard and fast rule, it would maybe make it easier for us fans to accept. Like if you go for it one-handed, it's a guaranteed penalty unless you catch it. You know what I mean? It just seems a little bit inconsistent. But there you go. The French were too good. 40 points to 5. But that being said, like possession was 50-50. Territory was 56-44 to France. So it's not totally lopsided. Ireland would double the knock-ons, which is frustrating when... when they weren't able to kind of generate any continuity, and the French at the breakdown, they win 7 turnovers to 3, so proper effort from those girls. It's a good thing for them to build on, and the Irish will certainly have a few work-ons. Both midfielders, Philippa, is it for France, excuse the pronunciation, 73 meters, beat 6 defenders, not bad. Eve Higgins, 121 meters, 9 defenders beaten. Not a bad shift as well. She really deserved the try because she was involved in a bit of everything. It should have been 7 points, by the way, because the missed conversion was horrendous from Ireland. I know kickers miss them in front every now and again, but that one was a particularly bad one. But yeah, there you go. Ireland are none from 2. They play Italy at home next, which is probably going to be the game of the round in terms of competitiveness. and France are away to Scotland. They'll back themselves to get a result there, but we'll still have to see how things go. The second one was certainly my favourite of the round. There's a reason I watched that one first, because I figured it would be the closest, and I was correct. 24 points to 19. This one went right down to the wire, which was pretty pleasing. If you're Scottish, you're probably frustrated with the first half that you didn't really build a bigger lead, because Scotland absolutely dominated the first half. But it was like 14 points to 7 at half time. They got a maul try very quickly through Skeldon. And they got the initial scrum penalty, but to be fair, the Welsh scrum really bossed things from, I don't know, like the 10th minute onwards. Phillips got one for Wales from close range. That was like their first visit to the Scottish 22, which again will be particularly grating for the Scots, because they certainly had more chances. They knocked a few on when they had chances. I mean, to be fair though, the first try through Lloyd is proper brilliance. The Scots go like 24 phases, then put a kick through, which I thought was too big, but the bounce brings it back. Beautiful stuff. And yeah, it's 14 points to 7 come halftime. Wales get a yellow card at the end of that first half because they're just under huge pressure. It's unbelievable. But yeah, still only a 7-point lead. That being said, immediately starting the second half, the Scots do extend the lead. It's Lloyd again. They missed the conversion for that one. That one was like 12 phases. So yeah, where those opportunities were kind of missed out on a few times in the first half. Clinical for that one. So 19-7, but that's the end of the scoring for the Scots, which is probably, again, a little bit disappointing. But the Welsh, they absolutely come back into the game. Their scrum's getting on top. Their scrum gets the Scottish loose head yellow carded because they're just putting her under the pump. And I should have mentioned the try first through Harry's, though. That one was, who was it that made the line break? Was it Jones? I think Jones with the line break, and then after a couple of phases, Harry's is able to go over. So it was properly game on for that one, and the score was tied up when when the Scottish loose head went off. So yeah, man, going into the last 10 minutes, the game's pretty much tied up. Butchers gets a line break, and she gets the ball to Lewis, who manages to put the Welsh in front, but they missed the conversion. So there's still a chance for Scotland to win it at the death. They go like 15 phases, but eventually they lose the ball. So, yeah, crazy one. The Scots on another day could have won this one. It's a weird one as well, because they kept talking about how a lot of the Welsh girls are pro and the Scottish girls are all amateur. But I'm pretty sure they didn't substitute the Scottish hooker or the tight head. And they may have not substituted the loose head unless she hadn't got yellow card. I don't understand. I don't know about the depth in women's rugby enough to comment, but are the Scottish starting front rowers that much better than the reserves that it's still better off playing the starters for 80 than to bring on the reserves even for 10? I don't know. Also, I think the Irish loosehead played 80 as well. I would have thought if your players aren't fully professional, they're not going to have the same fitness levels as pros, most likely. So why wouldn't you use your bench? I don't understand it. Someone enlighten me on that one, please. But yeah, overall, thoroughly entertaining match. I was really pleased to watch this one. Scotland dominate possession, especially territory, but points per visit to 22, that's the Welsh key stat, 3.4 to 1.7. So when Wales went down Scotland's end, they came away with points. Scotland, not so much. Scotland knocked it on more, 7-2. And this conceded scrum penalties 6-1. So that's a key area for the Welsh win. The Welsh number 6, I mentioned her, Alicia Butcher, 53 run meters, a broken tackle, 18 from 20 tackles from her. Huge shift. And the Scottish number 8, Conkle, 97 run meters, 3 broken tackles. So yeah, the Scots are none from 2. They do get a losing bonus point. But yeah, none from 2 for them. The Welsh have gone 2 from 2, which is a great start to the campaign. Although they're away to England next, which is going to be tough. Scotland are home to France, also tough. Good crowd at the Arms Park, very vocal, pleasing game to watch. The last one, Italy and England, 74-0. I'm going to admit, by the end of this game, I was starting to check out because it was just like a training run. Unlike this one where 40 points to 5, it's a hiding, at least the Irish, they had some ball. They fired some shots. The Italians, no, they were just getting destroyed. Unfortunately, they couldn't exit their own 22 half the time. Sometimes when they failed to exit, England would immediately punish them and score. I don't know much to say about this. There's a lot of close range tries. There's some good set piece from England. There's like charge downs. Thompson gets a hat trick. It's a phenomenal effort. One of them was the charge down, which Thompson was able to finish. Close range, backs, whatever it is. The English, even their conversions started coming right. You know, as the game went on, they alternated who was doing the goal kicking. I don't know. There's not that much to say on this one. It was just that lopsided that, yeah, England are just really, really, really good, aren't they? Italy get a yellow card at the end of the game. Doesn't help things. Yeah, too many penalties for the Italians. But basically, in all areas, England were just dominant. And if they'd scored one more, it would have been a point a minute, which is pretty brutal. England had 71% possession, 70% territory. They made 12 line breaks to 2. Italy had to attempt 253 tackles to England's 77. England missed 4, Italy missed 38. Italy conceded 15 penalties to 8. That's actually maybe slightly higher than England would like, given they had 70% of the ball. You would like to only have 30% of the penalties, but it's not that way. But anyway, maybe it is. But yeah, it's a pretty brutal one. Lydia Thompson, man, the right winger, 206 run meters, beats 5 defenders, 3 tries. She's a unit. She's quick. Poppy Cleal's a unit. She was injured for a while, but she bounced back pretty well. So yeah, I mean they rotated the squad as well. Like the starters and the bench players were largely rotated from last week, but it didn't seem to make a difference. So the lock, Tonesi had 23 out of 24 tackles, is one bright spot for the Italians. But yeah, like I said, they're away to Ireland next week, which would, on paper, say it's going to be the closest game. Because so far England and France have looked kind of untouchable. And England are home to Wales. So both sides will go in with 2-0 records, but England will certainly be massive favourites. Their winning streak is just huge. And I guess it shows you the difference between professionals and amateurs, eh? But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Wales and Scotland. I enjoyed France and Ireland. As I said, it's not that I didn't enjoy watching England just rip Italy to shreds. It was just kind of hard to stay engaged when the game is so long gone and all you're watching is England just go through move after move. But you got to appreciate what they can do, man. Some massive skill levels. It's the same when I watch the All Blacks play America and they put 100 points on them. I'm not like jumping up and down even though that's my team, although you still appreciate the good moves. But you know what I mean? You like to see a closer game than 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 points, whatever it is. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.